I'm Becky Lloyd-Pack.
And I'm Becky Stanton.
And this is the Doing Business Differently podcast. Hey Becky!
Hey Becky, how are you?
I am excellent, thank you. How are you?
Just as excellent. Very excited for this new podcast chat.
Yeah, so today we are going to be talking about this whole concept and topic of navigating moments that feel a little bit crunchy in your business, that feel a little bit disconcerting, I suppose, at times when you're starting to maybe transition through some sort of change, or you're feeling a sense of change bubble up within you. And colloquially, I like to describe it as the point where you just want to burn your business down, which I think is how a lot of people have felt or maybe feeling at the moment. So yeah, we just wanted to dive into that topic in a kind of unstructured, loose way, talk about our experiences with it, what we're seeing in our communities as well, and yeah, just offer our perspectives and thoughts around the topic.
Everyone can resonate with this. I think if you're an entrepreneur, a creative, ambitious dreamer and thinker, then there will come a time when things feel misaligned and it feels like the easiest solution is to get that matchbox out and burn it down and start again. But I think it's a really important topic to talk about. I know I definitely have the conversations, with my entrepreneurial friends, and we've had many conversations, haven't we? And I feel like it's not spoken about enough, about this feeling, about this experience, and not necessarily giving the pathway, the only way how to navigate it, but just to shed some light on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is something like from a personal perspective, it's definitely something I've been going through. Well, to be honest, it feels like perpetually since I started my business, but really more so in the last couple of months as we've kind of emerged out of summer and these autumn months. This felt like there's been this like storm brewing or something where the pressure has gradually been building, and I've been feeling more and more misaligned is the right word. But for me, I definitely experiences it like as a sense of almost purposelessness of like, what am I even doing? What am I trying to do? And I can have moments where I bring myself back on track. I can have moments where I reconnect. I can tune back in with my desires. I can tune back in with my vision and all those kind of things. And they still feel true. But in terms of like, but what am I actually here to do? Like, what is that work? How do I want my life to be? They feel like bigger questions that aren't necessarily going to be answered in me just doing like a 30-minute visualization. It feels this like, building pressure of trying to see if it's like a temporary thing, I suppose. I feel like I'm being quite vague here, but I'm sort of deliberately doing it because I believe there will be some changes coming in my business, which I'm not quite ready to announce in detail yet because I don't have all the details, but there's change definitely coming. But I think going through this, I've definitely seen more people doing it too. And I think often we can almost feel quite alone in that experience because it isn't something that a lot of people talk about, especially on the likes of social media, because obviously good business practice is to maintain a consistent online presence. It's to remain open to things. So sharing your vulnerability and your struggles in that way can also just not feel very safe for you as a business owner too. So yeah, it's definitely something that feels present for me right now, and I am excited to dive into it a little bit more together.
Yeah, and I feel since our collaboration as well, that was, I feel like, the biggest thing for us because I've been navigating it too. And I feel like for me, it was all triggered and prompted by a personal situation. So, and actually, no, I do agree that actually since I started my business, it does feel like a pattern. It does. And it can also be a positive pattern, right? That it's growth, it's expansion, that it's not stagnation, it's not standing still. It's this awareness of what's working, what doesn't feel too good anymore, what's no longer fitting in for where I'm going. And I know I've definitely said to friends and my husband before of like, I would love a moment just to stand still. I would love a moment that just feels like stillness. And the truth is, what I've come to realize is that stagnation, the stillness, that you can actually still find this peace and this trust as you grow. And that's what I'm really passionate about in seeking myself, but also giving clients. But recently, last 6 months, I would say, is really triggered by a personal situation where my mum wasn't well. And it really started to question things within my business and how I wanted to operate and the lifestyle of the business. So I've been going through something similar as well of questioning. It's an era of questioning, isn't it? And seeking clarity. And I feel like a pattern that came up for me, and I'd be curious if it happened for you as well, Becky, was wanting to force the clarity. I'm really like, oh, where's the answers? And I'm a very spiritual, soulful person. I definitely had moments in my journal and speaking out loud of like, just give me the answer.
Yeah.
Just tell me where to go. Yeah. Did you experience that too? Or 100%. Are you experiencing it?
100%. I think there's moments where I can cultivate patience and be in the not knowing. But there's a lot of moments where I'm like, okay, but can we just figure this out now? And it's funny because I default to like strategy and action. So I start being like, right, okay, let's just map out. Let's just take this one thing, like this one, maybe this is an idea that I could follow through. Let's map that out. Let's get into the details of it. But then after like just a little bit of distance between, doing that and stepping away, I'm like, no, I think that doesn't feel like it's come from, we talked last time about soul versus ego and things like that. That doesn't feel like it's a soul thing. That feels like it's coming from the human side of me that is craving some sort of control, some sort of like knowing about what's coming that is uncomfortable right now and trying to definitely force that sense of clarity. And it's really interesting as well, I suppose, because part of what I've done for people for the last, I think it's 3 years specifically, my business has helped people with clarity. So there's always been for me this real sense of like, oh my God, you're such a hypocrite. Like, you can help others with this, but not yourself. But what I'd also say is I've worked with people on their businesses and they've had moments where everything has felt crystal clear, but we do change. So it's never surprising to me to work with somebody in a session or whatever on their messaging, get clarity around that, only to see in a couple of months that they're like, actually, since our conversation, since we worked together, new things have come to light, new things have developed. And for me, that's never like, oh, we failed, or, oh, we mustn't have got to the truth of it in that situation. Because I think our truth, if you like, our clarity, our what kind of lights us up and keeps us feeling excited and motivated to go to work can and will change because we're humans, right? We're not actually machines. And I actually think there's like a really important thing here where a lot of us, when we think about like traditional business advice and what we see like maybe in the books or whatever, so much of that advice is targeted at or comes from traditional business models with multiple employees, where recommendations about staying consistent, recommendations about, becoming known for something or whatever, a lot of that stems from the fact that when you had multiple employees, you didn't want change because your personnel had changed. There would be nothing for people to almost become a part of, right? I think when you're building a business with multiple employees, it's not based around you. You do want something that is timeless so that it can grow and scale. But when your business is based off you and who you are, your skills, experiences, talents, expertise, perspectives, then it's absolutely normal and natural for it to change because we are not trying to be this like almost brand completely separate from us brand version. Part of what like our appeal to our audience is who we are. It is our changeable nature. It is our personality. So trying to limit that can feel really crunchy. That I think that's where a lot of the stuff can come in. And I guess like following my own train of thought here, one thing I will say is that I personally think there's a difference between just like some short-term discomfort that is maybe just triggered by your time of the month, or that is maybe just triggered by slow sales. And actually, you can ask yourself the question, hold on, if I was, for example, getting loads of clients in now, if everybody was buying this offer, if everybody was saying yes to what I'm putting out there, would I still feel this level of discomfort and uncertainty? Because I know for me in the past, like I tend to experience these moments during summer because it gets quieter for me in business. And that's when I tend to start questioning myself more. But if I would sit like, say, last summer or something and said, yeah, okay, but if everyone was coming in and buying what I'm putting out there, would I still be feeling this uncertainty? And the answer in those times would be no. I'd be absolutely fine. I wouldn't even be questioning it. Versus where I'm at right now is almost like if everybody was still coming in for the things that I've been putting out for the past 3 years, how does that feel? And actually, that's where that question of like, yes, there'd be no question, it's not the same. It's different. So I think there's nuance here between, is this just like a short-term response to something external, or is this an internal thing that's bubbling up?
Definitely, because we know that there's a self-sabotage technique, isn't there, to move on quickly. It's the flight, right? Not working, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. And I know I've definitely had that pattern before. It's a human response, right? Oh, okay, Instagram isn't working. Let me try TikTok. Oh, TikTok's not working. Let me try email, right? It's almost this flighty response. And I hear what you're saying. It's rooted. There's something misaligned deeper. And the patterns that I see with my clients, there can be a root cause within your energy, your beliefs, right? So it might be that the actual offer is aligned, but maybe at this new level that you're operating at, there is something there that is creating this resistance. And then there can be the resistance actually in the offer, right? Or in the marketing, or in money. Like, it's really about, isn't it, going beneath the surface and tuning in of like what really does feel misaligned, but not taking the first answer as the ultimate thing. It's really about being curious and being aware with yourself. And I feel that's why these seasons of questioning can sometimes feel longer. And I believe in divine timing. I don't feel like you feel misaligned and have one session with someone and then you've got the response and here you are back on track. It is a process, but I feel it is this deepening process of getting to know yourself better, coming back within, right? All the answers are within. Everyone external could tell you what to do, but really, what is it that you're being guided to do, which is more in alignment? And it's not to say that, the phrase "it takes time," because I see that so often become then this energy of, okay, it just takes time. And you find yourself back in this energy of waiting and just this delaying tactic, right? And I feel this is why it's such a beautiful topic, because there's so many things within it. But the core, which we've both been experiencing, is something's misaligned. And misaligned doesn't mean wrong, doesn't mean, that it's not meant for you. I know that our minds can create those stories and fill in the gaps, right? When something's off. Sales, for example, I have so many clients say, no one's buying, I'm not good enough. That person's better, the comparison, I should be doing it like that, like the FOMO, oh, that retreats are in, I should be doing retreats, and I feel that's so natural, that human response to fill in the blanks. But the only way, I said I wasn't going to give advice, but the only way is to be present, right? That's where the answers are, being present with yourself, being present with the emotions and the feelings and the patterns that are coming up, and being curious of what's at the root.
And I think that's like, I'm actually interested to hear a little bit more from you about maybe how this might look and feel for somebody, because again, if I think back to earlier in my business, I probably wouldn't know what that really meant. Like, obviously now I'm like, yeah, I'm on this spiritual journey, I've been doing my healing, like I get it. But I think defining what we actually mean when we say about like being present with it, because I think there's something around definitely something around like self-awareness, understanding what you're doing, and that there is a difference between like creating space for answers versus stagnation. There's a difference between like not dwelling on something versus being avoidant of something. And there's like, it kind of looks and feels differently for people. But I suppose I'd be interested to hear from your perspective of somebody that is like more of a practitioner of this than I am, for sure. What do you think it actually feels like? So if somebody is, let's make it specific, because this is how I love it, right? Let's make up a pretend person that's asking for help. If somebody is in this situation where they're like, something doesn't feel right at the moment, but I don't know what that is. Like something doesn't feel like right, and I've just got this desire to burn it all down. I just want to hit the reset button and just start again. But we can kind of know that actually if you do that, you're probably going to recreate the same pattern because there's something that's unaddressed or whatever. What do you recommend or suggest, or what are things that maybe somebody could try to start to explore maybe what isn't right and what isn't working?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like even that point of someone saying something's not right, I want to burn it down, is a point of self-awareness. There's almost a step before that of being just in subconscious patterns, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it comes into the nervous system, which many people may have heard of: fight, flight, freeze, and then you got the fawn response as well. So it's almost recognizing your patterns. That's the first step. You know, fight, for example, is pushing, forcing, making it happen. So maybe at the root underneath, there's something doesn't feel right, but you're really trying to make something happen. All your energy is going into this must work, this must work. Then you've got flight, that kind of avoidance, right? Or maybe it's more of a, okay, Instagram's not my place, the algorithm's crap. Okay, let me try TikTok. Try it for 1 week. It's not working. Okay, let me try a podcast. You set up a podcast and you think, no one's listening. That's the kind of flight response where you're not really getting to the core, but you're just being a bit flighty. You got freeze response, which is more the numbness of the almost just being in this waiting energy of really distracting yourself, procrastination, you know, filling your day up, making it very busy, but not really allowing yourself to understand what the problem is. And the fawn response is one of like people pleasing. So maybe you run to a coach and you're like, just tell me what to do, right? And you're just doing something else to kind of ultimately people please, or to try and find the solution through external people. So they're kind of like the patterns. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, we can all recognize what the key pattern for us is, or one that you might be experiencing now. And then it's just having the self-awareness. So when we say present, it's almost how I visualize it is coming into the now. It's almost this arrival into your body, into the moment. And that's why breath work, meditation, even just sitting still, or even like a walking meditation with no external noise. And when I say no external noise, more like what you're consuming, like no podcast, no music, no TV, just being here. And then it's starting to be curious and being reflective and starting to become aware of, how have I been operating recently? Where's my energy been going? What have I been focusing on? What have I been thinking? You know, what actually have I been attracting? And it's just starting to be reflective in the moment, looking backwards. And that's where our power is in the now to shift and create our future, but not through the past projections. So what tends to happen when we're in the pattern subconsciously is you just get more of the same. If you're not choosing to pause and be really honest, radically honest with where we're at. So with this example of someone who's maybe noticed the patterns and come to me and said, you know what, Becky, I just don't know what to do. I just feel so lost. Like the only easiest, best solution right now feels like just to set it afire and start again. For me, as an NLP mindset coach and a soul-led coach, is to really then understand what's prompting that being the only option. Like what's beneath it? What is misaligned? And that comes through exploring the thoughts. What is the problem really? Right? And I've felt this energy before, right? Of, I just need to start again.
Yeah.
It feels messy, it feels complicated. And at the root, for me, there's usually an issue with my offer, for me personally. So my business has evolved over the 3+ years. Started out with feng shui and like work offices. Now I'm mindset, energy, and nervous system. There's so much around my offers that tweak. And that usually is the thing for me, that actually I don't need to burn my business down. What ultimately is my offer, and also the marketing of how I'm selling it. And then also my mindset around the identity of that. So it's really coming beneath. That's the problem. Something feels off. And then it's just starting to be curious with yourself, or work with an expert to be like, okay, what actually is in my mind? What's in my body? What's in my energy that I haven't been paying attention to, but the patterns have been, have been there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's something like, as you're talking, I was like, oh yeah, I'm like, I need to do all this. But what I recognize, and I guess would offer, is maybe some of my own experience. Sometimes when I've tried to be reflective and trying to be present, you have to find a way, I don't like that language, but whatever, I'm going to say it anyway. You have to find a way to be able to look at your thoughts without them becoming them. So it's being able to find a way to create distance between the thought, being able to observe it without getting then sucked into the narrative. Because I recognize times in my past where I've been like, right, I'm just going to journal it out. I'm just going to see what's in my brain. But actually what happens when I'm journaling is, because there isn't enough presence, I get sucked into it, and it just becomes this loop and this spiral where I feel more lost and confused after the practice than beforehand. And I think that's where it's creating that distance between what's actually going on right now, what are my thoughts, and not identifying with them, which is where, like, being able to, if you can journal without judgment, or maybe you do it for a bit and then you stop and then you come back and look, like creating that space, working with a coach. Obviously they're the one that is going to reflect back to you, because they're going to be able to have that distance. But also something you and I have done recently and spoken about is the act of recording yourself on video as like just a creative process. There's something about it, about setting up your phone, your camera, and just monologuing. And I don't know if it's because you are immediately kind of self-conscious, which creates enough distance. I don't know. For me, there's something about that process which I am able to find clarity through recording myself on video like no other. It's one of the most powerful things for me. And I know you've been experimenting with it recently as well, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a big journaler, but recently I just haven't wanted to write. And my usual ritual, my practice is on a dog walk. I am that crazy lady in the woods talking to the universe, talking to myself. I don't even have I used to put earphones in to pretend I was on the phone, and now I'm like, no, I own it.
Love that.
I just have always been in a communication with myself and beyond me, or within me essentially, like just speaking and expressing. And I just got called recently to start a video diary. So every day I record a video, I save it in a particular album, and it's me talking to all of me. So I talk to younger Becky, I talk to present Becky, and I talk to future Becky. And it's, as a coach, I can quickly go into self-coaching. And it's something that I love to teach my clients as well, that you don't always need a coach. You just need to know the tools so that you can coach yourself. And yeah, I do the somatic work on myself. I'm speaking to myself but the power is seeing myself. And I'd say most of the videos, I'm crying with love and adoration to me, which sounds very narcissistic, but it's very much this beautiful, like, I see you and I'm so proud of you. And I know that's a version of me, like, supporting me. So for me, it's this really intimate expression that I get from journaling and on my walking meditations. But there's something powerful, just like mirror work. It's just a mirror reflecting back to you of like, I see you, I'm going to look in your eyes, and I'm just going to, support myself. What's been your experience? I know that yours is slightly different.
Yeah, so mine is, I think I've always found that the way I tend to process emotions and the way that I am able to find clarity is through talking things out and almost putting myself in the perspective of, if I was trying to make sense of this situation for an outsider, like, how would I explain it? What are the thoughts that would flow through? And for me, whenever I go into any sort of creation mode, it's when I am most present. I'm not like thinking of anything else, and I'm really very much in the moment. And my whole experience started with it. I don't know where the thought came from, but over like the Christmas break of last year, I just thought, wouldn't it be fun if when I go back to work in January, I just record a video every day with absolutely no planning, no script, no editing, just around a topic, and just see what comes up. And it was, again, probably a way to navigate this, like, what do I want to talk about? What am I drawn to? What is my experience? What are my perspectives? And after doing them for about 5 days, I was like, you know what? I'm going to upload these on the internet. So I did. I just uploaded them on YouTube. And I think that it just, I can't even really explain it, but there's something about the act of essentially channeling whatever's going on, being present enough in the moment that I don't second guess myself. Because sometimes with journaling, it's too slow for me. So I can't write as quick as my thoughts are coming out. And so I haven't even finished a sentence in my journal and my thoughts are already way ahead. So actually capturing it on video, being in the moment, having that self-consciousness as well, just creates this sort of like magical recipe that allows me to find clarity about situations that nothing else does. And I think there's also something beautiful where, and again, is it narcissism? Maybe, that I think I have something worth saying and people should listen to me, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's something about being able to almost like take the turmoil, alchemize it into language and visuals as well, and put it on the internet, and just know that maybe someone else will get something out of it. And inevitably, because I do ad hoc tell people that I've done it, like on my Instagram, like, oh, it's a new YouTube video. People watch me like, oh my God, thank you so much for recording this. And it helps almost ground me and make me feel less alone in that experience, and actually bring me calm and bring me peace. Because they're always the emotions, right? The minute I kind of feel a natural conclusion to a video that I've recorded, peace descends. It's like this, and for me, I would say I very much feel like internal pressure, and my mind gets busy, and I have to do, and I think like whether that's like fight or whatever, but it is this thing, and I know if I let it out, if I find a way to actually channel it, to express it, to give it a voice, then it is able to leave me, and I'm like, oh, okay, whew, we can relax again now. So it's just a really magical thing. So for anyone listening, if you're in this position where, you know, you do journal or you do have some sort of reflective practice, I highly encourage you to just try something out that's different. So whether that is recording a video of yourself, whether that is voice noting yourself, whether it is going and speaking out loud on your walk, I think there's like the novelty of it can add this like excitement and a different perspective. Whereas sometimes, like even with journaling, I think because it's such a go-to for a lot of us, it can just become a bit of like almost like a habit, and you stop engaging with it meaningfully.
Yeah, I feel your mind gets more involved. I feel like the power of expression, and it's essentially what like therapy and, you know, you could argue coaching is. It's a way to, as you said, like process the thoughts, process what you're feeling. And so many of us, unfortunately, were not shown how to manage emotions when we were younger. It was almost the suppressed emotions. And what I find, and I know that you're experiencing and my clients are experiencing, is a way of reconnecting to the full spectrum of emotions, especially ones that we definitely were not allowed to show. And I feel that this is a beautiful ritual that allows you just to be with yourself, whether you want to share it or not, you do you, but it's very much around, I am feeling. And you do just allow yourself to go into this unconscious telling of where you're at, what's happening, what's thinking, making the connections. And as you said, Becky, being able to then be like, actually, this just came up for me. Whereas in writing, it might feel a bit, harder to find that flow. And in the videos that I've been doing recently, it's been the most incredible breakthroughs, these connections that I hadn't even noticed. Even this morning, I tuned in and I had a lot of energy in my throat. So I do it very somatically, just because that's my way of being. But you can just be like, I am feeling. I just have taught myself to know where the feeling, what the sensations are in my body. But I could feel something. I can feel it coming back now, like this old energy. And it was just so beautiful. This big realization came. And what's beautiful is it's now on my phone, and a little practice that I've been doing afterwards, because I'm so present during them, that I listen back and I make some notes, because there's always something. And when I first started, it's because I was feeling a bit stuck energetically. I was like, I don't even know what I want to do today. I don't know what the focus is. And the focus came. The first video was long. I had to get a lot of emotions out first. There was a lot of tears. There was things that I could say, knowing that no one's going to see it. So it really felt powerful for me in that sense, because I was like, I get to say all the things I've been thinking, but maybe I've got shame to tell anyone. Yeah. I can tell me, I trust me, right? Hopefully my phone won't get hacked. But it was really, really powerful. And then once I had got that big energy out of me and I felt lighter, the clarity came. And that led to me launching my new offer. My new offer that I've recently launched had been sitting ready to go for 3 weeks. And I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't promoting it. And my subconscious patterns went into avoidance. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. Then this big emotion came out and it was like, okay, what's going on here? And it allowed me to understand what that resistance was. And I'm an open book, I'm happy to share. There was a block that if I launch this, I'm going to be really busy, but because my mum wasn't well early in the year, I can't be busy. I've got to keep myself open to support my family. And I can get in the body chill, right? There was this subconscious block that it's safer to not launch this. And as soon as I allowed myself to first process some of the emotions around it and then to see what was happening, I was then able to understand that no, that's not true, right? Because the ultimate block was, it's bad to be busy. It's unsafe to be busy. And it was like, actually, it's not even true. Busy isn't even my plan, right? The whole point of the offer was about being flexible and open. I'm not going to have 10 client calls a day. If someone needed me, I trust my clients will understand that. There's no block here. It was just built up energetically and emotionally in my body. And that's just one example that I navigated recently. But I feel like going back to these videos, it all came from being present, arriving to the video, allowing myself to express as long as I need, like some videos are 20 minutes, and then really tuning into the energy and acting upon it in an aligned way. And as we said, it's not about doing one video and then being like, oh, I'm magically free. It's a process, and especially if you aren't attuned to your emotions and actually you're used to not feeling, it's going to be a process for you to reconnect and find the words and the expression, but it's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point with any of these practices. I think there's a power in committing to do it for a period of time. And I'm not going to give a magic number or anything like that, but I've recently started playing with morning pages again and doing stream of consciousness style writing where I don't let the pen stop moving. But in my head, I'm like, I'm going to just do that for the next month and just see what happens. And I'm not going to judge it as like, oh, I had a good day or a bad day. It's like, no, I'm just going to commit to it and let the process work its magic. And I think sometimes it's like, say somebody was to go and try a video, I'm like, well, that didn't work for me. It's like, maybe commit to it just for a period of time and just see what happens and see what comes up. So I think the first time doing anything, we can come with expectations. We can come with, potentially come with expectations if we're following someone's recommendation, of course. But there's actually giving yourself that sense of, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to take the pressure off that anything needs to happen. But it's about creating that space for yourself that you've almost committed ahead of time. So it's instead of like waking up and like, oh, what am I going to do today? How am I going to process my emotions? How am I going to do this? It's like, no, I'm just going to, this is the practice I've decided. Just going to go with it for a while. And it doesn't mean you need to do it forever. I definitely go through seasons with things. So like I did it for January with the videos, took a long break, came back to it for a bit when I needed to. Now I'm trying morning pages. Like it's taking what feels almost resonant at the time, what feels like, okay, I'm just going to lean into this practice and see if it can help me navigate these things. But all of them are essentially tools to help you find presence and give you that kind of perspective on your own thoughts. I think that's like a really, which feels crucial. And part of that, to add on, is making sure you're not feeding yourself too many other people's thoughts. And this is like the social media thing, right? This is what I found. And speaking to a friend recently, she's been off for a while and she was like, I was feeling super clear and excited. And I came back to social media ready to start. And within like a week, 2 weeks, I suddenly felt confused again and overwhelmed by everybody else's messages, as everybody else's content. So I think there's like a really important caveat. If you're feeling confused and lost, if you find yourself on social media looking for the answers, you're probably just actually making it harder for yourself.
100%. Yeah. And I was even thinking recently that about a year ago, I used to have a Sunday detox where I turned my phone off. Actually, it was over a year ago. It was before family passed away. And I feel there's something there where I feel like I have to be present. But there was so much power in just having no technology one day. Not at all. There were some days where I was like twiddling my thumbs, like, well, what do I do with myself? Right? Yeah. But there's power in noticing what you're consuming. And a few other things which are very similar that I personally have been focusing on recently and tend to my go-tos when things feel confusing or misaligned. Number one is space. Cleanse your space. Right, it might feel like you're procrastinating of like, oh, I don't know what to do, let me cleanse. But there is power in cleansing energetically and physically your space. And that I feel that was definitely connected. Well, when I was doing my video diary with myself, it said, this morning, Becky, cleanse. That was the intuitive message I got. And I came into my office and I just cleansed, got rid of old paperwork. There were like scribbled notes of like ideas where I thought, that's not aligned. I don't need to keep this. There's like fear trying to collect everything and keep it. And the next day, the clarity said, I'm ready to sell my one-to-one. And I don't feel that's a coincidence. I'd created space to move forward and receive. So there's definitely the spaciousness. And the other thing I know we spoke about this when you're feeling unclear, and I mentioned it earlier of just give me the answers. Like, what's the pathway? Like, let me just focus on it. It's all consuming. You find that all you're thinking about is, where's the answer? What is the clarity? What do I want? What is the right move? Which way should I go? And it's so energetically and physically exhausting that for me, it was finding a new focus. So I created some more rituals that again come back to being present, that instead of the focus being up here in my mind of trying to figure it all out, how can I support myself to drop from my head into my body?
Yes.
So it was more movement, so exercise. It was the longer walks with no technology in my head. It's somatic exercises that I do. It was EFT. It was meditating. And these things don't necessarily have to be, all in one clump. I kind of spread them out the day as these anchors to come back and be present. But they became my focus, with this trust and knowing that the more I come back to myself, the more the clarity will come through. So it's always this beautiful blend, isn't it, of like, what do I actually need in order to allow the clarity to come? And so I like to think of it like the clarity's there. The clarity is always there. It's how can I listen? How can I receive? Instead of it being like external of like, come to me, I'm ready. It feels outside of yourself. And I feel it's powerful to think, okay, the answers are within. So I need to come within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that like that creating space is, I'm not going to probably regurgitate this correctly, but I've definitely heard it said by someone somewhere in a really beautiful, eloquent way, which I'm not going to butcher. But it was really essentially when you are able to clear things out, you create a vacuum, right? You actually create that. And so by laws of whatever...
Law of vacuum.
Law of vacuum is about bringing that in. And when your mind is busy, you won't be able to hear that. There's no space for new thoughts to enter because maybe you're stuck in patterns of just like playing the same ones on loop. So it is about how can I create that level of like stillness, that level of calm. And it's not necessarily about, because I've definitely done a thing where I've been like, oh, I don't want to think about this anymore. So I'm like, I know, I'm going to go and read a book. But actually that was just more escapism, because the minute I closed the book down and like try and do something else, the thoughts would come right back.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, you've got to find your own way through it. Essentially, we can't sit here and tell everybody what the perfect thing to do is. You kind of have to discover that for yourself, unfortunately. Also, fortunately, this is life. It's an adventure. So, yeah, I think there's so much... I feel like there's so much good advice in what we've shared, and I'm sure people listening will hopefully be able to pick up on the bits which feel correct, right, alive, exciting for them.
Yeah, and I feel like the ultimate message is you're not alone if you're feeling this way.
Yes.
And I've spoken to 2 of my entrepreneurial friends, very successful business owners today, and they're both going through this. And it's almost to be expected. If you are here to grow, if you're here to make a difference and make a big impact, and you want to make it in a way that feels incredible for you, you're going to feel this. And it's that presence, right? Of when it does come, when you feel like you hit that ceiling, which essentially what it is an energetic ceiling. It's just coming back within and being like, okay, what do I need? What do I need to explore? And just taking your time with it. I think one thing I've learned by going through this many, many times, as you've said as well, it's a journey. And it can be a tough journey. Yeah. There's moments within where you're like, come on now, right?
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. There's a part of me that does not want to be here. Come on, let's just wrap it up. Let me learn the lessons. But you start to realize as a seasoned entrepreneur that actually clarity always comes. Always. That's why you're still here. And so the less you force it and the less you put pressure on yourself, and sometimes there can be external pressures linking into that as well. It goes back to the question of what you're consuming, what you're surrounded with. Then it's just knowing and trusting that clarity will always come, but there's certain things you can do, different for everyone, that support the clarity to be heard. And then I guess it's a whole nother podcast episode of actually following that clarity. What it means to actually, okay, this is it. That's a whole nother
which I feel like, to be honest, could be the next one, when it's just being you next time. Maybe we'll see. Who knows? Everything might change. I'm making no promises, listener. Who knows what we'll talk about? But I think, being in the process, giving yourself ways to actually create space, to hear yourself, to not just be stuck in the emotions, but to find ways to move through them. So looking at whatever your pattern is that you have traditionally lean on and go to when you're experiencing things which feel uncomfortable, and finding ways to interrupt that pattern, I suppose. Finding ways to navigate it, to actually really connect with what's going on, being present in the moment, and trusting that is what's going to create the clarity. No amount of like forcing, chasing, like spinning around on the same questions over and over again. That's probably not going to be so great. And also being kind as hell to yourself, and not putting pressure on yourself to even navigate this in a way that looks clean and nice and kind. There's probably going to be times when you aren't very nice to yourself. There's going to be times when you're experiencing all this stuff. It might happen. And being kind to yourself afterwards, and being like, it's okay. Look, it's not about trying to make this look or be anything other than it is. Yeah. So that kind of self-acceptance and self-love, I think, is really important here too.
Yeah. And if anyone's heard the phrase like ego death, that's just like essentially what it is. Like this level is going beyond your mind and the ego. Of course you can carry on as you are, you know, especially if it's financially successful, but it's actually coming back into soul. It's what it's always about, coming back into your body, into your heart. And that ego death is challenging. You know, darkness of the soul. Like it's really a process. It's like the awakening memes, if anyone's seen them, right? Everyone thinks it's all rainbows and butterflies when really you're in the shower or the bath crying as you navigate this. That's just the norm. And the more you're kind to yourself and understand that this is the process of you growing, that shedding, that caterpillar, right, coming into the butterfly, where, you know, I'm sure you've seen the memes as well, where like they literally go into mush before they emerge as a butterfly. That mushing process is normal, even though it's challenging. And kindness, as you said, is like is so important. And knowing that any of those patterns that we mentioned, any of that sabotage, any of those ways that you're trying to, before you had the awareness, is all happening for a reason, right? So sending love and kindness and compassion to that part of you, not the shame bus. It just keeps you in that energy.
Yeah, totally. And of course, if you want to be held and supported in it, then our community, the pod, we support each other with this kind of stuff all the time, right? Like this is the whole point of why we set up the community, why we run it the way we do. It's about supporting the human in business, and even going through these times, there's never any pressure to know the answers. And collectively, me, Becky, the other people that we have inside it as well, we are all here to support you. So if you do find yourself feeling alone and stuck and really unable to break those cycles and break those patterns, just an invitation to you to check out our community, the pod, because it's the place where this stuff is accepted, encouraged, welcomed, held. Tears are able to flow. There is no judgment. It is designed to be a safe space for all that, and to help you like be witnessed, essentially, because often somebody else witnessing you helps you witness and recognize yourself too in those moments. So just putting that out there as an invitation as well, should that be something that feels like it calls to you in this moment.
Yeah. And the specific sessions that we have are the clarity clinic, right? And the hot seat healing and the reflection moon mornings as well. There's so much dedicated time, isn't there, to navigate this?
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, hopefully you have got something out of this episode. I have loved chatting to you as per usual, Becky. And I'm sure we'll be back next time, maybe talking about what comes after when you've received the clarity and now you're moving into that decision phase, that actual active letting go of old energy and stepping into new energy and actually navigating that period of time once the decision is made. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we won't. You'll just have to tune in and find out. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Becky, for your time today.
Thank you, Becky. A joy as always. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And if you're listening to this over on our Substack, we'd love for you to join the conversation and let us know your thoughts too.
Likewise, if you actively want to explore what doing business differently looks like for you, then do be sure to check out the pod, which is our private community where we share a bunch of resources every month for you to play with as you define your way of doing things.
Inside the pod, there's also a ton of live sessions held every month too, from community circles, clarity clinics, hot seat coaching, moon mornings, and member-led knowledge sharing sessions. To check it out, just head to the show notes below where everything is linked for you to explore further.
Thanks so much for listening. Speak soon.
Lots of love.